culmination of a fantastic season, Aaron, last Sunday, All-Ireland football final. What did you make of it?
Brilliant spectacle. Great to be there as always. Probably not as close a final as what we would have hoped or expected, but I think that doesn't take it away for the quality of performance that Kerry put in across the 70 minutes. Thought they were incredible. Thought that everything that they could have hoped for and planned for, they executed. And you can't but give credit to a team who can go on the biggest stage of all and nail everything that they need to do. Donegal will obviously be bitterly disappointed with so many aspects of the game. I don't believe that's remotely a true account of them as a team and the consistency they've had this 2 years. But I think we've seen that on a number of occasions this year, that teams are much better than what their final game showed. You're thinking of maybe the likes of Galway, Meath, Armagh, etc. But I don't think it takes away from how exceptional Kerry were. And I think I heard just a clip of Paddy Clifford earlier in the week where he said that he doesn't believe they ever put in a 70-minute performance like they did at the weekend. And I think in terms of as a playing group and a management team, I think that's what they'll get the greatest satisfaction from.
Yeah, you're right. Massive kick out of that to do it on the biggest day. And there's no doubt when the going got tough, after the group stages, there was only one team through the quarterfinals, through the semi-finals, and last Sunday again, who had challenges and had to answer, who had questions asked of them, but they embraced it all, and they probably used the little bit of motivation to their advantage to really put in a massive performance. Really, it was a spectacle. I was there and enjoyed it, but I suppose as a neutral, then you're hoping for it's going to go down to the wire a little bit more. But with the way Kerry started the game, and just how they backed up that first half at halftime, like you're wanting something to happen to bring it back into the cauldron, to tighten the gap a little bit. But Kerry weren't going to let that happen at all. So they deserve a huge amount of credit. They'll be thrilled with themselves, and if they can hang on to Jack O'Connor, I'm sure they're going to be looking forward to next year pretty soon.
Yeah, like you mentioned, everything that they did, and I think maybe we start off just with yourself in terms of the throw-ins and just how you felt it set a tone for the day ahead.
Well, it's something we've covered, Aaron, already. We looked at a lot of the times Dublin would isolate Con O'Callaghan on the sideline, and it will be caught, and it will be fed into Con on the run, and Dublin would create the space, and he got in for scores in several games, Galway, Derry, to mention two. So another angle on it on Sunday, I observed, and both throw-ins were scores for Kerry, and I suppose that is particularly in the first half, to hit the ground running, maybe a little bit more pressure on Kerry coming into it, but to hit the ground running like they did and score after 11 seconds was just a tonic start. But both teams are more or less doing the same thing. There's a fast break to the middle of the field. It's Gavin White, it's Ryan McHugh. Both of them were gone early. They're a long way from the 65 there. And if Anton Ryan McHugh is ahead, but what we notice here is just a little bit of cute play. Joe O'Connor has hands-on Finbar Rorty, so he's keeping him out of the play here. And we'll see the same thing happens in the second half as well. And a lot of fortune as to where the break goes. Ryan McHugh in this instance, he jumps to intercept a hand pass that is never given, and he takes himself out of the game. And once Gavin White opens up and he gets through, and he just pops off a lovely ball for that very first score, like 12 seconds in, I think. So just a magic start for them, and a real vote of confidence and a settler of the nerves. And the second half again, so this time Brian O'Beugly is just doing that little bit of manhand and just keeping that player out of the play. Again, McHugh was in there fast and early, more so than Gavin White. This time he elects to take contact, but Gavin White stands up really well. And Kerry just are in and going to work a lovely score. I think Sean O'Shea is the finisher here with 20 seconds on the clock. And, if there was any doubt going in, that's the perfect way to start a half, just to push that gap out again. And it really took Ryan McHugh out of the game. He stayed on for maybe 6 or 7 more minutes after that, but he was carrying his shoulder and they had to replace him. And he's a massive player for Donegal. And I just think in isolation, those two scores, it was, when you, in hindsight, everything was going Kerry's way, but those two things, they are big plays. When you can kind of somewhat control what happens or plan and prepare for it. And when you execute, it's just that vote of confidence that they're going to take from that. So yeah, I thought it was worth mentioning.
No, but you're right there. It's massive in terms of just players' confidence in the field. Whenever you talk about stuff, you plan it, you walk through it in training, and it comes off on the biggest day of all. It just gives an air of confidence across the whole team. You're like, we're really on this. You know, we said we were going to start the game well. You know, we said we were going to get a score with our first attack. You do it in both halves. Everything else flows after. Even the Sean O'Shea kicks that there point, you just see the edge in him coming out. You know, that shunt back into Hugh McFadden's face. That's what winners do. You know, they're not happy with their lot. They're laying the gauntlet down, and they did from both throw-ins, and it followed suit. And I suppose a few bits that I want to look at here in terms of is their forward attack, how they set up, and again, similarly to those two throw-ins, like everybody has this plot and this plan for how they feel best to get around Donegal's defensive system, the zonal defence. You know, again, back to the start of the conversation, like Donegal are nowhere near as bad as what that game played out to be. They've been ultra consistent the past 2 years, 2 Ulster finals and all-in semi-final and final appearance. Still not enough for them. But to me, how Kerry worked a few different versions of attack, and everybody knows what's coming. Everyone knows the pace and intensity. But I want to start here early on with a long Shane Ryan kick out. Superb hands by Joe O'Connor, but he hits the ground going forward straight away. But just the big one for me is this hand pass Paddy Clifford into Sean O'Shea. And we've seen this all day. Their ability to move the point of contact before the Donegal swarm came on them. Now, as you look at that now, you think that's simple, but because Sean's heads up, he's able to swivel out of the Kieran Moore tackle, quick hands to O'Shea, quick hands to Geaney, and a brilliant loop around point by Paddy Clifford. How many times do we see Sean O'Shea getting bottled up and 4 Donegal players breaking up the field and punishing you ultimately?
It's Kerry willing to take that on, but knowing that they're going to shift the ball out quick enough, because a lot of other teams, the pass mightn't be as good, the player isn't as in tune, and like you said, he's just swarmed and it's a turnover, and that's how Donegal build their play. But it was Kerry confident enough to kind of walk that fine line and then move the ball out. Yeah, it was impressive.
They have the skill set. They had the vision. They also have the skill set and confidence, as you said, to take it right to the lane, but not go over it so the 4 men strip you of the ball. This is just a different version of attack. We could have picked whichever one we want in terms of David here. But what I just want to show here is how well set they were, or how in tune they were with working 2-pointers. So as the ball gets recycled back out here, if you just look at David, he can loop around and take a pass off Mark O'Shea now. But instead of doing that there, Mark O'Shea doesn't bother. He pops it back out to Paddy, and we see David takes another arc out in his run to make sure he takes him outside the 40-metre arc, loops around, sorry, it's Mike Breen, I think it is, and hits another unbelievable 2-pointer from distance, because it's the separation that he creates between himself and Brendan McCole. There's not a huge amount Brendan McCole can do in that instance, because he has to stay goal side him for the initial part once he's inside the arc, because we've seen in the second half how good he does with that backdoor cut and heading straight through a goal. So he has to stay goal side, but it's David's his game smarts to take himself outside the arc, but also Mark O'Shea, instead of giving the first pass to David, he goes back one more pass to create that 2-point attempt. Another version of attack that they have that they're really good at, they loaded the full forward line in particular with Sean O'Brien and with Mark O'Shea. So we have Sean O'Brien highlighted on the top of the screen here. Again, this was a Kerry fast attack that ends up Donegal scramble really well, but it's the composure and their ability to move the player from side to side. So just keep an eye on Sean O'Brien as he goes inside. What Donegal did really well, and we highlighted earlier in the year, was at times they left an extra player inside the 21 and let Sean Patton pick him up. So it gave them an extra man in the arc. But they don't do that. Pedro Mogan is supposed to be keeping an eye on Sean O'Brien here. Sean's just looking around and saying, is there a pocket of space here that I can lead out, get my hands in it, and maybe a runner will come off my shoulder? Doesn't even need that there to happen. You have the quick wee pop pass straight into the arc, takes 2 steps, and there's no way Mogan is getting close to him. Hooks a lovely point off the left shoulder from the edge of our traditional D, and it looks so simplistic. But not a lot of players, whenever they go in there, you see an awful of them just stand and go, well, I don't have another job to do. He looks around, sees there's a load of space to my right hand side. I'll lead into it and see if I can get a ball. and a couple of slick hands, and there we go, simple score. Back to the very first clip that we showed in terms of Sean O'Shea win another break ball from the kick out. This, you can see Finbar Rory. I had a brilliant view of this here. He reads the first pass where it's going, and he comes like a train. He's looking to make contact, get contact on, get a turnover, and they're gone. But just a simple wee pop pass into space. And you can't see them all here, but I've counted now. You've actually 9 Donegal players who had this one pass now all end up chasing. Kerry are looking to go on a quick attack here. They're looking to punish as quickly as possible. Very unlike Paddy here. This ball, if it's played in front of Graham O'Sullivan, he continues on the goal. He plays it a yard behind him, and there we go. We end up in a close attack. The initial fast attack is gone, but this is again another aspect of where Kerry were absolutely brilliant in terms of just retaining possession, knowing that Donegal would play only. So they've attempted to go down one side of the field. Now they've switched to the opposite side where Gavin White was getting huge joy out of himself and Sean O'Shea to try the probe, but quickly realise it's not on, the swarm's coming, and they'll come back out. But straight away what they have done now, by just that quick pace down that side, is they've engaged 8 Donegal defenders on one half of the field now. So from the goal post on the left-hand side across, there's 8 Donegal players, and you have Paddy Clifford now outside of the boot, realising we have 3 one-on-ones on the far side of the field. And there's literally 3, now they're good hand passes, they're all played in, but there's 3 passes made. Donegal don't have the time to get across and make contact anywhere. And again, that all comes from, that's something that they talk about. It's something that they want to execute, and they did it. They engaged enough Donegal players without getting themselves turned over, but had enough players on the opposite side of the field then who had discipline to stay there and not start following the crowd. So for me, that's 3 or 4 different variations of attack that I think we had mentioned just off air, how direct they went against Tyrone. They knew they couldn't get away with that at all in this game. But to have another 3 or 4 variations and to pull them off, it's no mean feat.
Why did you tip them to beat Donegal to beat them 2 weeks ago, Aaron?
It wasn't even 2 weeks ago. It was 1 week ago, Michael. To be honest with you, I didn't expect that. Donegal seemed flat now. They did seem flat. And an awful lot of the commentary now since is how well Kerry beat Armagh, how they beat Tyrone, and then obviously now they've beaten Donegal. I would have expected more from Donegal in terms of just the energy levels. There was a huge dip in them, whether that's nerves or whatnot, I'm not sure. But I didn't think that they would let Paddy Clifford get 76 touches of the ball and have no turnover at all. Now, that's incredible that he had no turnover, but the vast majority of them, he had no pressure on him or he had no contact at all, which is alarming in an All-Ireland final. And you're going to be in big trouble. Throw in a few injuries to Kieran Thompson, to McHugh, and then let's just give Kerry credit for everything. Right. Their kickouts, how they defended one-on-one, how they defended collectively, their forward play. As Paddy Clifford said, he doesn't remember them putting in a 70 minutes performance like that. So I think we'll give them more credit than my pure predictions.
Yeah, absolutely. So look, we'll just move it on. And the next piece, I suppose, it was the first half really is what caught my eye. I suppose you had the backdrop on that then was all the bit of nonsense, waiting up to line up for the march and that, and how Kerry were kept waiting. And I suppose I was fascinated just watching it. I was in early and I was watching, both warm-ups and keeping an eye on things. Which I haven't got to do at some of the other Donegal games you've been broadcasting, and you don't get to take it on board. But yeah, it was just, I suppose I was intrigued with the way the contrasting styles approaching the parade and the warm-up, or the parade and the lineup, how that would materialize. And I suppose I wasn't expecting it to open up the way it did for Kerry, but like you said, they just brought that energy and the backs to the wall, they were a powerful force. And was it nerves or what was it a flatness for Donegal? I don't know, but it was the first half when the damage was done, really. And the point I was going to make, or when I was looking back over it then and putting something together here, and I was thinking on the kickouts, and I suppose just got a couple of bit of information on Twitter or X as we call it, and it was Gaelic Statsman who was just summarising things. And when you looked at the whole game, Kerry and Donegal both won roughly the same amount of scored the same amount of scores from retained their own kickouts. They both conceded the same amount of scores by losing their own kickouts. And the two throw-ins we looked at earlier, so they were 2 points. That's Kerry got the march there. And then the big thing was the turnovers. Kerry got 1-6, I believe, from turnovers on Donegal. Donegal only got 2, and that's the massive jump. So the clips that we look at here is just it's a couple of kickouts and a couple of turnovers. And Kerry's just their setup. It was 4 across the arc. It was typically 3 or 4 between the 65, but they did not want anything to go short. And what we can see there is the movement and the turning and the twisting and the working together to cover the spaces. They weren't just stationary. And the signal goes up for the long kick, and it's a super drive. But like, what a catch by Joe O'Connor! We saw one earlier that you had from him, just phenomenal stuff. The point I'd make there, he's jumping with Kieran Moore, which probably maybe is a mismatch. I don't know. Michael Langan wasn't far from the landing zone either, but that be it as it may, that's how it happened. The second one here again is early in the second half, and Patton wanted that one short. He couldn't get it away. Again, Kerry are 4 on 3, 4 on the arc, 3 between the 45 and the 65. They just do enough to close it down. Patton has to reset, and he's going to go along here. And I suppose fortune favours the brave, and there's a little bit of good fortune in this. But when the break kind of ping pongs off Brian O'Bughley's leg, it falls to their way. But that's symptomatic of the winning team when those things are happening. And Kerry are just moving it on well, and like this is going to end up in a beautiful 2-pointer from who, and putting them 9-3 after in the 11th minute. It was just everything was going their way, and I'm just thinking, I'm watching here, I'm like, what do Donegal do? What can they do in all of this? And it was just really power play blitzing from the start. And this is just it's going to be the one from earlier, but it's a beautiful score. So that was the turnovers that on the kick out, and then just this was maybe a little bit symptomatic of Donegal, just the looseness in the play. This pass is probably on, but you have to absolutely nail that. Paddy takes a little bit of a gamble, to be fair to him. But it's just something that you gotta say that Jimmy is so raging on the sideline when something like that happens.
It's just so unlike Donegal, Caleb McConaughey in that instance, but they never give that ball away ever. Kerry were there and ready to punish them. And
this is another one. So that was the 2-pointer on the turnover here again. Now this is a bit more Kerry. Graham O'Sullivan is already moving to Padder Morgan coming out with the ball. Behind him, Dylan Gainey is in tune with him, knowing that as he goes, if the ball goes over his head, he can press. And again, it's going to get into the hands of Caleb McGonigal again. And Dylan Gainey does enough. He gets close enough to put a hand on the ball. But they were working together at this stage. Just a little bit, I say, Caelan will be disappointed again with that, because it's something that you don't really see. And a turnover on your own 45 or just outside it is only going to lead to one thing, especially against an opposition like Kerry and in form they were in. And just the scores are just racking up at that stage. And I think, the first half was when the game was won, and it was in that period that the kickouts that they were able to score on, the Donegal kickouts that they could score on, and those turnovers, forced turnovers, they got 1-6 off Donegal turnovers all day, which is huge return.
Yeah, like Dylan Gainey, you said, he reads it really well in terms of he leaves his man on the outside to come across to Caleb McGonigal. But like Caleb, the first person he's passing to, he just needs to put a bit more height in it. But even further up the lane was the person that Dylan Gainey had left as well. He had acres to play it out in front of the Cusack stand. Again, it's a small aspect, but it's just so unlike Donegal. But that's something that will disappoint them. But for me, the positive from a Kerry point of view is how ruthless they were at making sure that, right, we have about 5-6 seconds here to punish these boys straight away. And they did. There was no attack. They were looking to get as close as they could to the scoring zone. And to be fair to David, he planked himself far enough off the field, and just he read and timed his runs to perfection of every one of his forwards. His ability to trail so close to the ball carrier, because what you do is, as Brendan McColl's chasing him, he can't stay too close because he needs to maybe take a step around whoever David is trailing. It was a brilliant aspect of how ruthless that Kerry were again.
And speaking of ruthless Kerry, you have one more piece and it's on their defence.
Yeah, it is. Obviously, like Donegal were kept to 19 points in the game. Very rare that you keep them to that. I think a few times it happened this season, potentially the Mayo, the Tyrone games. They also only ended up with 6 scores from play, where they've been averaging over the 10 for the vast majority of the season. But to me, yeah, we'll have a look at a few clips here, just in terms of, again, it's all right giving players as much information as possible, giving them video work to do. But again, to go and execute it on All Ireland final day, we'll have a look at the times for some of the clips that we see here as well, and have the game smarts and the know-how to be able to defend as well whenever the game's in the melting pot is absolutely brilliant. So they've just lost their own kick out here from Shane Ryan. Donegal got into a perfect set attack. The 2-pointers killed obviously Donegal in the first half. But for me, this is Sean O'Shea highlighted in blue. He has a runner coming straight there in the central channel, but he has his head up and he scans and realizes my 2-point threat is Dara O'Boyle. And he hairs straight outside the 40-meter arc, ignores the central runner, knowing that someone else will back him, and just puts enough pressure on. In fairness, Dara O'Boyle steps him, but he then goes inside the 2-point arc. He doesn't want to take on with it. He ends up recycling the ball again. But Kerry just stay really focused now. You know, they're not chasing out, going after lost causes. This ultimately ends up with a simple free in. But to me, I think whenever Brendan Cawley looks back and they do really well, they get a brilliant swarm on it. I think the clip just maybe cuts a wee bit short here, but as Jason Foley and Joe O'Connor get both hands, and it's actually on the ball, they give away a soft free. But it was how they swarmed that central channel to stop that power run from Donegal was very impressive. Another aspect again here is Joe O'Connor gets turned over. It was good work by Michael Langan and Hugh McFadden. But again, just what we want to show is knowing your players, knowing the danger. So Joe O'Connor's giving the ball back. You'll see him in the top corner of the screen now. He's making his way back into position, defensive position. But Dara O'Boyle takes him right out to the sideline again. He's their noted 2-point threat from distance, going right back to the Donegal game or the Derry game in Celtic Park last year, kicking points from distance. Joe O'Connor doesn't even bother with Hugh McFadden on his left shoulder now. He could have a call from Mike Breen, or he knows maybe there's more defensive cover, but he knows Hugh McFadden runs in there at the 1-point threat. I need to get out on Dara O'Boyle to stop the 2-pointers, and he does. You know, so from giving away, getting turned over, and giving Donegal that energy, he doesn't stand and feel sorry for himself. He gets back and still has the focus and know-how to understand where the danger is coming from. And to me, it was another really good aspect of their play. Similarly, top left-hand corner of the screen here, 60 minutes gone in the game. Paddy McBrady's now come on. Dylan Casey, he's not probably feeling the freshest, but he knows Paddy McBrady's left-footed. He stands off him. He gives him that 5 yards. He doesn't dive in. He doesn't commit to let Paddy step him and get the shot off. Again, you're giving players information all the time. Not all of them take it on board continuously, and some you would have to imagine will struggle 60 minutes into an All-Ireland final whenever the energy levels are flagging. But same thing, he forces the recycle. Ball goes back into Paddy. He doesn't then think, great, I'm going to go after him this time. I'm going to force the turnover. He does exactly what he's after being told all for 10 days before in training. He's more than happy to say, take me on down that sideline. I trust myself that I can match it for pace. And he's happy that he ends up that it's a ball just being recycled. And this is 65 minutes in the game. They had tried to break out. Long ball, the Finbar Rorty intercepts. But this is game smart. And this is something that you can't coach. They're not switched off. They get a break. They pick up the ball. But Evan Looney's only on the field. He's a young player. He has limited minutes under his belt. But as soon as he picks up the ball, his head's up straight away. I mean, Michael Murphy makes a ferocious start because he knows time's up. I need to make contact. I need to force a turnover. Look at Evan Looney the whole time. Heads up. Mark O'Shea, as soon as he gets the ball, if he puts his head down at all at any stage or fumbles that, he's nailed by 2 people. His head's up. Because his head's up, it gives him that split second to get that side step and hand pass. And similarly with Paddy here, as soon as before the ball comes to him, his head's up and he's looking. He realizes contact's coming and he's able to ride that contact and go on. And what a ball up the field. So we're talking that 66 minutes into an All-Ireland final. Game's probably won for them at that stage. But just that, like I said, awareness, constantly having your head up and not looking at the first man in front of you, looking above that, looking past that to see where is the space for me to play out of that there. So Looney, O'Shea, Paudie Clifford, unbelievable player from them. Again, it might look simple as we're sitting looking at it now, but in an All-Ireland final when Donegal are doing everything they can to try and wrest some sort of control in the game, it just was another aspect of their defence and their skill set that I suppose has them rightly down as All-Ireland champions for 2025.
Yeah, and just going back to Dylan Casey there, and like you said, 60-65 minutes in those one-on-ones, and just the clarity of thought, you know, with all the fatigue, just to know, go back in his mind, this is what, I suppose, like, he's looking at Paddy McPherty as long as we are, you know, but at the same time, knowing what he's going to do, and live, being setting yourself up to protect your team for that, and give him the option that he doesn't want, you know, it was a piece of brilliant defending, I have to say. Listen, so this is a tough one now, right? We're told we have to pick a player of the year, so maybe there might be a long-winded discussion around this.
I'll tell you what, I'll follow you just in case I don't get it right.
Yeah, well, there's no big debate. I know the guys in the hurling show had a little bit more head scratching to do, but you know, there's only one winner with everything that he's done, and in particular this year, and how I suppose the new rules have accentuated his positives, but have accentuated the positives of the game by and large. So yeah, it's only going to David Clifford. I suppose there's an honourable mention for Joe O'Connor, who had an absolute monster of a season as well. Even going right back to the goal against Cork to win the game for them in extra time. That was, you know, up on goal of the season as well. But that's who I'm voting for. What about you?
No, I'll not differ. And again, if we're talking about online stats, I can't remember where I've seen it, but David Clifford double surpassed the top scorers from play in the past 3 championships. Doubled what they had scored. And in the past 3 championships, he wasn't the top scorer from play. So I think in terms of whenever we're looking as a season as a whole, and maybe people mightn't think that is fair or that's something that we should be focusing on, but to me, that is the positives of the new rules. If an absolute generational player like David Clifford can't get the ball, can't shoot, and can't score because there's mass defences there, that's not the greatest spectacle in the world for me. Now, I wouldn't fancy having to chase them around the field like that, but I think that that's just an unbelievable positive out of the year and the tweaks that we had to the new rules, that he has now the ability to showcase his talents the way we all want to see it. And it won't be only him. I think, as and we have mentioned numerous times in this show, as the seasons go on now and players get used to that space that they haven't had, particularly there's a generation of younger players coming through now who have never been afforded that time and space. Yep, and might need to work on a skill set to deal with that better. To be afforded the opportunities now. So yeah, an absolute unbelievable season for him. That stat alone tells you the amount of times he got the ball in his hands and the amount of times he was able to score. But for me, I'll absolutely be stunned if he's not player of the year. And I suppose if we make it a wee bit more interesting, I'll throw in our young footballer of the year, in my opinion. I'm going to go for Finbar Rorty. I think I'd seen him in a challenge game early in January for Donegal, right up until, I know he didn't have his greatest game at the weekend, but there was plenty more experienced players who didn't hit the heights that they would have hoped for. But I think throughout the year, I thought he's had an unbelievable breakthrough season in terms of how he defends, the pace he breaks at, the scores that he got. So probably an honourable mention maybe for the likes of Matthew Thompson, who didn't go far enough. But I'll go with Finbar Rorty as the vote for Young Footballer of the Year, unless you have a different...
No, I don't disagree. Yeah, I think he was ridiculous really in some of the games, and he just that real Donegal player in terms of up and down the pitch, and one of these guys who he's going to score as well for you as well. So I don't think too many will argue with that either. But that's it, Aaron. That's it. We're at the end for the season. Pleasure working with you, and I think we can. We're leaving with a smile on our face, which is always good as well. So just to finally say to everyone, thanks for tuning in all year long. And hopefully you'll find the last little bit of interest out of the county season there. But back to your counties or your clubs, within your counties as well. So hopefully the new rules are going to kind of wash through everything that we saw at the inter-county level as well, and bring on loads of good games dotted around the country. But I think for myself and Aaron, I'd say that's it. All the best. Thank you.
Good luck. Cheers, Mike.